hello, ladies, sisters. This is so fun to have two sisters with me today,
Thank
Lisa
you.
and Sarah. Coming from a family of sisters, it's just, I know it'll be a really good conversation, and the dynamic and the back and forth is really great. And doing something together.
Yeah.
So let's just jump into it and tell me about Heartsnug and why. Just give the why. How did it start? Why did it start? And
Okay. So I'll start.
Sarah.
So I'm Sarah. So I was born with a very complex heart defect. So I had open heart surgery as a baby. And so for the first, 15 years of my life, I was in and out of so many different doctor's appointments and procedures. And particularly then, I went to a research hospital in San Francisco, UCSF, which is an incredible institution. But there was just so much chest exposure. And primarily then, it was cardiology is a male-dominated field. So just so many men looking at my chest and manipulating the gown that I was wearing, or oftentimes it kind of just got removed because they were trying to do things to save my life, right? So that was the priority.
how old were you during this time?
I was probably, my whole life.
Okay.
But
The time when you really, were conscientious of the
first
fact that you
15
had
years.
something open. Okay.
Yeah.
Teen years.
Teen years.
10 years. So
Teen
that is
years.
a tough time to have
It was incredibly hard.
cardiologists feeling your
Yes.
chest.
And I remember like laying up when I was having one of the procedures done thinking, why can't I wear like a bra? I mean, I was just so insecure. So fast forward years later, so 5 years ago, I had a stroke, which landed me, I've always had regular cardiology appointments and care, but this was like a pivotal point in my life. Back, I had, some procedures and back in the in and out doctor's phase that many of us that live with chronic illness know and live with. And at that point, I realized, oh my gosh, it still doesn't exist. They're still giving me just the gown. My chest is open. I go to the emergency room at times and you're laying because, the overflow, I'm outside and I wanted more protection. So that's really how Heartsnug came to be.
And so, I've always, known her struggles and, and her complaints, throughout the years about just feeling vulnerable in that way. And so we started talking and, we discussed it with our other partner who lives up in San Francisco, Lauren. And we were like, let's do something. And so we literally just started drawing and working with a pattern maker and trying to figure out a way to make this happen. It doesn't exist.
So crazy.
So,
We're patented. It does not exist.
It's amazing.
yeah.
So if women are wearing them during an exam, let's say with a cardiologist, maybe even a breast doctor or breast oncologist, can they leave it on and do everything they need to do? I'm assuming there's some wiggle room in that, but
Absolutely. So the impetus was cardiology. That's where we really initially saw the need. And Lisa can talk about how it's expanded with breast cancer and radiology, and we have personal experience with that. But as you can see, Heartsnug, we've cut it very low. So the stethoscope can go on the chest without any interference. And then also it's Velcro. And so you just Velcro it open and one side can be covered.
I feel like I'm a flight attendant doing the demonstration.
Well, what's her name? I think the mannequin needs a name,
She
actually.
does need a name.
She does.
All right,
We've got to figure that one
we'll
out.
figure
It needs to be like a mashup of your two names, like a La Sarah or a Lara or something.
Which is our
else.
mom's license plate.
Lisa Sarah is our mom.
Well, there you go. I think that's her name.
I love it. Okay.
I was helpful.
Yeah, Lauren will figure out how to incorporate you into this also. Okay, so
anyway, so you Velcro, and so obviously the right side is covered and the left side can you remove for, whatever needs to happen on the left side.
Yeah.
It's just creating an extra layer of privacy.
Yeah.
And that was our goal from the beginning.
yeah, so we just want, we want Heartsnug just to be like the standard of care, and opt out, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you walk into an appointment and you're given the gown and you're given Heartsnug, and if you want to wear it, you can. If not, you don't, but it shouldn't even be a question.
Just sort of pivoting for one sec. As a business, like what are your avenues? Is it to have contracts with hospitals? That's the goal? Okay.
Yeah. So the goal is to go direct to hospitals. And we're actually, we're in a bunch of trials right now with a lot of big name hospitals.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So
And we're in one hospital. We're in UCSF.
Okay.
Children's.
Okay.
They loved it for the teen market.
Yeah.
And because of Sarah's story.
My story.
And because
Yeah.
of Circle.
And you were at US.
It
you got
started
it.
up there. So it's like, it's come full circle for
And
Sarah.
what is the reaction, or like when you go down that road? mean, I know there's an insane amount of bureaucracy in hospitals.
That's
Trust
been the
me.
struggle for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
But when you get to the right person, assuming you have, it sounds like you are at least close in these other hospitals. What's the reaction? Obviously, USF was very positive.
Yeah.
And it was very personal.
Yeah.
But has the reaction been open and excited, or has it been a little like, oh, it's another thing?
I mean, it's a mix. And it's interesting that you asked that because the pushback, because it's still quite a male-dominated industry. Men don't necessarily understand it as much as women. And they're like, well, you have a gown. So isn't that enough privacy? Like, that's not, we've been doing this for years and nothing's wrong with it. But we're just looking for, something better, like a better standard of care.
Yeah. And I guess it depends who the representative is on the other end. So if it's a male or a female.
The female population is like, of course, it's a no-brainer. All of that feedback, and females really, really
there are champions, and they're really getting it in the right places.
So receptive. So it's just the challenge. It's just getting Heartsnug into hospitals to do clinical trials because we've got to get the data to justify.
To see who's wearing it, who wants to wear it.
So that these hospitals can, justify purchasing it and spending money on it. So the trials are crucial. But the initial feedback from everyone is great, but you got to wear it. We got to get patients
And to answer, and the second part of your question, so we're on Amazon also.
Okay.
So obviously we want all women to be able to have access to it, but really it's the hospitals. We want it to be offered in clinics and hospitals.
Yeah, you're more likely to put it on if it's sitting there with your robe than to bring it with you. I mean, although women certainly, I'm certain there are women that would buy it and then just know that that's what they're taking it and using it for.
You keep it in your trunk, in your throw bag. I mean, so many women, obviously, dealing with radiation, they go every day.
All the time.
Mom went every day for 3 weeks straight. So,
So it's interesting. So it did start out with Sarah's story, and that was sort of, the impetus for it. But our mom actually did have breast cancer while we, were sort of in the middle of creating all of this.
So somewhat recently.
Yeah. Within the last year.
I mean, she ended radiation 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Okay.
So it was just kind of like crazy because we were like, Mom, obviously bring Heartsnug with you. And she was sort of our proof of concept in a way, which was kind of like just a weird, obviously we didn't want that to happen.
Of course.
But we were like, we kind of documented her journey and her, all of that. And she wore it every day. She'd put it on when she went into radiation. And then she'd lay down on the machine or on the bed. And, the doctor would open it up and then do her radiation and then close it back up. And then she'd put her robe back on and she'd go get changed. So she was never really exposed.
And to that point also, it's disposable. So you just toss it and go, or you can wear it home and just throw it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was beyond your mom's reaction? What were the people around her's reaction? Were people like, what is this? This is amazing.
Yes.
Like, where did this come from? What are you wearing? How do I get these?
It's one of those like
no-brainers.
No-brainers. Like we wear bras throughout the day, right? Except for when we sleep. Like, why aren't there bras available when there are appointments? And in particular, like some with chronic illness, like myself, I mean, I can be in a doctor's appointment for 4 hours because there's multiple appointments. I might have
from office to office.
And so I just wear it with a sweatshirt over and then I just like toss it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I was thinking about this because I had my annual mammogram and ultrasound just a few weeks ago. And their protocols changed post-COVID. I don't know really why now, but to have, I guess, less people moving around within the different offices. And then also, like it used to be, you would change and then put all your stuff in like a little locker where I go, right? And then put on the robe. And then you'd be in the robe. And if you do like mammogram and ultrasound, you would be going to 2 different rooms in that robe, which of course never stays closed. And it's like so flimsy.
Right.
But for me, this last time, I didn't. I just went straight to the mammogram room, took off my shirt, and there was no even reason to put on the robe because I was going straight to the mammogram machine, put my shirt back on, and then went into the ultrasound room and took it off. But there were moments where I was just sort of sitting there or waiting with like, half naked. And I laughed about it to her. I said, well, I grew up with sisters. I don't mind being naked. Something you haven't seen before. And she was like, yeah, I see breasts all day.
Yeah.
But that's me in that situation, probably trying to make light of it so I don't feel uncomfortable and she doesn't feel uncomfortable. But I thought about it knowing that I was seeing you two, thinking there are women who don't feel comfortable, who don't want to stand there even for 10 extra seconds waiting to be in the mammogram machine, which is, by the way, incredibly uncomfortable anyways, and be completely exposed.
Right.
I mean, you think someone's looking at you, even if the tech is, not and doesn't care really and has seen, 7,000 pairs of boobs that month. But it's very awkward. It's uncomfortable. And then thinking if you're young and you're in that moment in time in life as a teen or preteen, where that's all you're thinking about. And then people are just sort of, looking at it and looking at your boobs. And I mean, it must have been so uncomfortable.
It's a vulnerable situation.
Vulnerable.
I mean, but also, think about, the older demographic also.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that. There's women with, certain religious beliefs that don't even want to go to the doctor.
Or women who've had surgeries and are disfigured.
Well, that's the other thing. I have
a
a friend who absolutely dreads going to the gynecologist, even just because she doesn't want to expose her breasts.
Yeah.
She had a mastectomy and implants, and she's just not happy with that. So, and it's uncomfortable. It's just, it depends. It just depends on who you are and how you feel. But we want to make it available for women that do want it.
We just want the option to be there.
Yeah.
Right? That's all we want.
Why wouldn't it be, I mean,
especially now.
At this point, you're like, why wouldn't it be there? It's such a no-brainer.
Right. And what I'd say too is there's such a focus now on the patient experience and patient care and whether someone wants a chaperone. I mean, that's a really big push in hospitals these days for legality and X, Y, and Z. So Heartsnug positively impacts the patient experience.
Absolutely.
It gives us control.
Okay. So. I wholeheartedly agree.
Thank you.
It also takes some of that weirdness away from the medical professional also, because they're not worried about saying the wrong thing, or I don't know. It just right. I mean, it just helps doctors not have to even worry about that whatsoever.
And also helps with communication with from the patient to the doctor. Remove some barriers.
You feel a little more comfortable talking to your doctor when you're covered versus exposed.
Yes. So there's two interesting points to that. One is that I would make now. One is, I could see women wearing this during childbirth. So if you think about during childbirth, you're basically wearing a robe that completely opens most of the time, and who knows what's happening because you're focusing on other things. That there's no reason. There's nothing going on with your chest or your breasts when you're having a baby, right? And then if you're in a research hospital, I was for 2 of my kids, it was a full packed room. There were so many people in there, so many residents. This is a teaching hospital. It was at Georgetown. And they were young. These were young kids, men and women. And I was sort of young and I wasn't paying attention, but I'm sure my breasts were flying around when I was there for, however long it took. And it would make so much sense instead of a robe or under your robe to have Heartsnug on for sure.
We don't think about it though, because
it wasn't on the table.
We take what's given us.
Yes.
Here's the gown, here's the robe, put it on. And then we don't think about it and we just let them tell us versus,
100%, especially as women and especially as women in a medical situation, you sort of do what you're told, which is the second point I would make, which is, it's interesting. With the Lynn Cohen Foundation and with our educational platform, the Peony Project and the SEAM, we do a lot of talks and we bring in experts and doctors to give, updates, explanations, what's happening in the world of breast cancer, oncology, ovarian cancer, all sorts of things. And when women are in groups, so even if it's 7, 12, 80 women listening to a true expert speak about something particular that has to do with women's health, wellness, or preventive care, we have so many questions. Very personal, very detailed questions that women don't ask when they are alone in a room with their doctor. They don't. So even if I love my gynecologist, and I'm probably different because I'm much more, in depth in this world than others, but women, you're alone with your doctor, especially your gynecologist, you're intimidated. There's, things on the walls that tell you where they went to school. They're the doctor. They know what's best.
They're wearing the coat.
They're wearing a coat.
You're in a gown.
You're in totally. Yeah. And how often nowadays, Yeah. And how often nowadays do you get dressed and then go sit in their office? That sort of used to happen. It doesn't happen
That's
so
a
much
really
anymore.
interesting point. I can't remember the last. It doesn't
exist any longer.
Well, it's funny. I actually still experience that with my internist, who's very old school, and I love him for
Probably
that
for that reason.
I love him for that reason. You get dressed, you sit in the office, you have a full conversation about your medical history, and you feel like you're actually, talking to a peer versus, the white coat syndrome.
The doctor. Yeah.
Looking up, feeling little.
Yeah. But most people don't, especially with specialists. So you're in this room, it's very quick. You're half naked. Yep. You're barely covered. And by the way, the robes often don't even go that far down our legs. They're like, you've also just been completely exposed if you're in a gynecologist's office, for example. And the idea that moment you would have the self-confidence to ask the questions that you may have even written down and things that are changing in your body, things that are different. And women don't, especially women, they don't ask those questions.
We also feel so rushed for time.
Yeah.
Because you're waiting there a half hour for your appointment and then you're in for
their time's so important, right?
Yeah.
And you feel guilty almost for asking a question.
Yes.
Right. So you're in and out. And so anyway, we're very excited about it.
It's amazing.
It's full circle and we're seeing so many uses for it. Dermatology, there's so much.
So much. And you're, at the essence, at the core, you're empowering women to feel comfortable, to feel confident. And then those things will allow, I think, women to speak up for themselves. As I always say, be their own advocates because no one else is going to do it. Yeah, by adding a barrier, you've eliminated a barrier,
correct.
Right?
Yes.
Which is, what more could you ask for? So I think it's just incredible. I have a question.
Yes.
Which is, coming from a family with two older sisters, and we all started the Lincoln Foundation together, but I really run it day to day and all of it. How is it working together?
Oh, the best. We're not just saying that, right?
We're really not just saying that. We have so much fun. Work is not work.
Yeah.
The experience has been great.
And we don't hurt each other.
We bounce everything off each other.
Yeah.
Do
you compliment each other in terms of what your areas either of expertise 100%. Or your just sort of natural inclinations?
Yeah, Lisa's incredible. She's the one that really worked with the pattern maker, and she just has a real keen sense for design and what works and that
aesthetics,
and
that sort of
that's
thing.
Who she is at the core. And my whole, it's in my DNA. It's just medical. I'm like, in another life, I would have loved to be a doctor. It's not that I still can't, but so just having the access, and I'm, constantly speaking with nurses and residents and doctors and whoever it may be about Heartsnug, just being in their presence, it's really special to me.
Yeah.
So,
and then, how did, 2 parts, Lisa, how did Sara's childhood affect you and change the way you see the world, the way your relationship is, and then your mom getting sick? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I had a lot of guilt actually later on in life. It came up later on in life because I was always the healthy one.
Yeah.
And Sara was always limited in things she could do and foods she could eat and activities and sports and all of those things. And, and we sort of is what it was then. But then later in life, I did feel a lot of guilt. And so that was hard. But
how'd you get through that?
Just, she's helped a lot with that because she's so confident in who she is and her struggles have just shaped her into this person. And we have zero competition. And she's just really just been so.
Thank you. I love you. Anyone that knows me knows Lisa's such a role model to me. I've always looked up to her. She's always been my big sister. She always will be. It's like what she says, I do. And you know that. But
it goes both ways. Literally, I bounce everything off her. So how did that shape? So it shaped me into just being, I think, more compassionate, with people who have struggles like my sister did, and just more empathetic and, just teaching my kids about empathy and instilling all of that in them, So, but
the reality of fragility changes the way you see the world changes your life, changes just your whole path, I think.
Yeah. But it's amazing. And I'm so proud of her. I mean, she's done so much you have in terms of, she's written, I mean, she wrote a child,
I wrote
talk about it.
Yeah. I wrote a preschool age book about living with invisible differences. So those that can't have a peanut allergy or, ADHD or whatever it may be. It's just a little story that I published. And so I've done that. I've done a lot of work.
She's published different, articles in various journals. And, she's really taken her journey or taken her struggle and just turned it into a real positive journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Yeah. And by the way, that's not the norm. And it's really hard to do. So you should feel really proud of that.
She should.
It's a big deal. I think I think experiencing any sort of trauma or loss, whatever that loss is, when you're young especially, I mean, it 100% changes the way they see the world. But a lot of people get very bitter, very why me, and have the inability to take what they've been through and really make something positive out of it. I mean, it's truly lemons into lemonade.
Yeah.
And not only have you done that for yourself in your own life, but now you're sharing it with others and doing it together. It's pretty amazing. It really is. So much. It's really admirable.
Yeah. I mean, I've never felt like, why me? It's just not who I am. It's not my identity. I've always had a sense of pride living with a heart condition. That was never an issue, but I definitely did have challenges in school and the special PE class and limited in different ways. But I think just now, I'm 46 years old. I have a 16-year-old son. I've grown so much. We all have challenges. We all have things that we're dealing with. And so I'm just embracing kind of what is and what I know. And what I know is I want to help all women feel better in doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. And so that's my mission. It's like our mission.
And see, that's how she's made it easy for me, because she hasn't been like, why me, why me?
Right.
And I have a beautiful life. I mean, I don't, like we're good,
Yeah. And I think finding your own power in your own struggles and journey, and then using that to empower other women. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. It's been very cathartic. And, we've done a lot of research and we've done a ton of surveys just to get to this point, to understand if there's a need, if there's a want. We may want it, but the overwhelming response has been just like, yes, like, where is it? Where do I get it? And so that's why we're really pushing forward.
I had an interesting conversation with a friend who lost her mother when she was younger, not to cancer. And we talked a lot about how sort of taking the experience and making it positive is also an incredible way to heal yourself. And it sort of forces you sometimes then to look into, well, how did I go through that? And what do I still need to do maybe in terms of work to get really through it if you ever do. But this sort of healing process, continues for a really long time. But doing something where you're like really ensconcing yourself into something that could change the way other women go through what you went through or many other avenues, can be really healing for yourself. Did you find that? And then when your mom got sick, I know it's maybe sort of detached, but did it have an impact on how you dealt with your mom's cancer journey?
It actually kind of did, because I mean, we're sort of like a very light, like kind of
family,
joking sort of family. And so we sort of took Heartsnug and we'd kind of make it, not a joke about it, but when she'd go to her doctor, don't forget Heartsnug, when she'd go to radiation, she'd be like, I'm just a little frazzled this morning. I didn't remember to bring it. And we're like, oh, come on, Mom. You gotta bring Heartsnug with you. It just, I don't know. There's just been something, we've just kind of used Heartsnug to kind of,
I think we've all bonded. I hate this word, but I hate that word bonded, but we've all bonded over Heartsnug.
Right.
And then our other co-founder, she lives in San Francisco, Lauren, her mother also had cancer and wore it through, all of her appointments. So all of us, we've just kind of rallied around.
It's just been strange that it's just been this thing that has played such a role in all of our lives.
Right.
But that's
unintentionally.
Yeah.
Very unintentionally.
Right.
Unintentionally, but perhaps makes a lot of sense because of how it started, why it started, and what you're like, how you're putting it out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but also it's just crazy how many people are just going through stuff. I mean, and so, it's like, I have another friend who was going through breast cancer radiation, and she wore Heartsnug. And, it's just so, there's so many people.
And then also just going to just your yearly appointment. You have a physical, you have a dermatology appointment for a mole check. You really have to be naked and take your bra off? Can't you just wear this? And
I mean, a lot of people will just keep this with pants on if you don't need to. If you don't need to take your pants, it's just easy. You don't have to undress. Just put this on. Be done.
There's no metal in it, and so you can wear it. Like Lisa, you wore yours.
I've worn it in MRIs. You can wear it in ultrasound. Whatever there's no metal. There's no traces of metal.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
We've done testing, and it's really useful. And so we're excited.
Isn't it amazing that it didn't exist, that nothing like this existed? I mean, it's so great that it does now.
But it seems so basic.
It's so basic.
It seems so basic. It seems so like, I don't understand how this wasn't around.
Yeah. We're not scientists. We're not, surgeons. We're just normal people, normal patients who could have benefited from something like this.
Yeah.
And patients are
it always takes the women to make these kinds of inventions and these things.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's patients who actually make the healthcare industry thrive. So
and we're all patients,
We're
right?
all patients for something at some time, and sometimes deeper than other times. But we all go to the dentist. I mean, there's always a patient aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So if they have gowns that are reusable, that they wash, and then they have Heartsnug, is there any sort of cost limitation that the hospitals are seeing in terms of like, this is so expensive, or it seems so incremental into what they also do for
that's
gowns and changing gowns and washing them and laundering them and the whole thing?
It wouldn't necessarily be in lieu of the gown. So it would be an additional cost. It would be an additional cost. So that's why we have to, we have to get the data to justify, how this could impact the patient experience in a positive way. And therefore, help
and
with
keep
the whole
patients
ROI.
going to that specific clinic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And pretty soon they are going to not want to be the only place that doesn't have it, because that's ridiculous.
Right. So we just want it to be just an opt-out.
It's just the standard of care. Wherever you go in the United States, Heartsnug is there. And period, the end. You walk in, you can wear it or not.
Yeah.
But just have the option. That's all it is.
That's
and
amazing.
then our partner, Lauren, she dreams big. She dreams real big. So, and you know what? She keeps us going with that. So we appreciate it. But I have to say this for you, Lauren, globally too, not just the United States. Yeah.
I mean, especially even, and like you said earlier, with women who have religious hesitations to being exposed. I mean, there's an enormous market, I think, for women and going to doctors who defer and then don't go to the doctors because they don't want to go through that experience.
Yeah.
But if the actual experience was changed, perhaps it would make them, get there.
There is actual research that shows that women do not go to the dentist.
That too. Well, that too.
To the doctor because of the exposure.
Yeah. It makes total sense.
Yeah. So we've actually we're doing a trial in Israel actually.
That's amazing.
Now. So we'll see how.
And the Breast Cancer Foundation, we do a lot of.
The National Breast Cancer Foundation. So we've got samples in some of their partner hospitals.
And also, I'm just going to say this too. Also for emergencies, like with the Maui, the fires.
Yeah.
We sent a lot to the burn units. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a bra, right? It's just a medical bra. We're not trying to reinvent, the gown. But we are very excited because this should exist in 2020.
Because our simple little, experiment could be, or we want it to be something so big.
It's a game changer. Don't poo-poo it. It's a total game changer. I think it is a big deal. I think it is a big deal because it doesn't exist and now it does. And that in itself is pretty amazing. And I do think it changes the way women feel and the way women feel empowered in a doctor's office. And then, like I said before, their ability to then feel confident enough to advocate for themselves or have another 3-minute conversation that they might not have had because they wanted the doctor out of there so they could scurry out of the gown and put their clothes back on.
Exactly.
And that's actually really important to hospitals too, is one of the questions on our survey is actually, would this help increase communication with your doctor?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So communication is important.
I hope so.
For the hospitals as well. They want to know that their doctors are
Or
Absolutely.
listening. Or,
listening.
Well, also, I think, for example, someone I know has had a ton of crazy exposures in his life, carcinogens and all sorts of things from a life in the military. And he's seen many doctors. And I always ask him afterwards, like, did you tell him your, like, potentially why you're here? Like, did you explain the things that you've been exposed to? Did you explain like any of your medical history? And he's like, no, I just answered the questions. And so I think it's very universal that people in general don't feel empowered to speak to a doctor when you're alone with them. And like I said before, I think it's even more so for women, and even more so if they're physically feeling exposed or are exposed. It's just a whole nother, a whole nother level.
It's women's equity. We do a lot with femtech. That's the space we've been in a lot lately. And it's just about our right to have a product that we need, right?
Yeah.
Like, why hasn't it been considered in the past? Why hasn't it been important enough?
And we know it's a long road. We know that it's going to be a long road ahead. We do, because of the bureaucracy. But we're so up for the challenge. We really, really are, and we're staying the course.
Oh yeah,
like 100%. We're like, in 10 years, like, even if it's we're staying. We know that it will make an impact.
And it will. And even if the impact is small, it'll be small but mighty. And then you never know how things go. So it's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
This was so fun.
I know.
And it's really tremendous.
Thank you.
It's really great.
Well, what you do is tremendous.
Thanks.
So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, ladies.
Yeah.